Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the latest all-Ullar expansion set, the Elites of Ullar and Ranoc Vipers. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Renegade Game Studios for sponsoring this video by sending me a copy of this set to review. Obviously, as you can see, I purchased quite a few of them myself, but I always appreciate the support Renegade has shown me. If you're interested in getting any of these figures, I'll leave unaffiliated links in the description below. I want to start by talking about the figures I'm the most excited about, the Ranoc Vipers. If you didn't already know, I'm a huge fan of the Viper faction from Heroscape, so when I learned that they were coming back in Age of Annihilation, I was elated. New Vipers in 2026? This was not on my bingo card. Despite being mortal enemies of the prolific Morrow, the Vipers were actually a fairly underdeveloped species in Heroscape's original run. With only 4 army cards total, it really felt like the Vipers were just never given the same care or attention. The Ranocs exemplify this underdevelopment as they actually now bring us the first ranged component of the Viper army. Wielding looted weapons from slain Morrow, the Ranoc Vipers aren't the first of their kind to use the armaments of their enemies. The Ranoc Vipers once turned the talons of the Raptorian enslavers into tools to bring about their own liberation. The Ranocs are just another example of the Vipers' breed of ferocity and adaptability. When examining their army card, we can see another similarity that the Ranocs share with the Ranocs: zero defense. Indeed, one of the defining features of the original Viper army was how insanely expendable its combatants were. Even the so-called elite Onyx Vipers could only muster a paltry 2 defense when engaged. At range, however, the Onyx Vipers were nearly unkillable, thanks to their evasive 8 power, which brought their total defense up to 10 when defending against ranged attacks. The Ranocs don't gain nearly anything this strong, but they are thankfully graced with evasive 2, affording them some chance at surviving ranged firefights. Like all Vipers before them, the Ranocs have the ability to slither through water tiles without stopping. This, paired with their incredible base move speed of 7, grants them a ton of flexibility when it comes to positioning and board presence. In fact, 7 move all but guarantees that you will be first to reach the high ground, meaning that you can essentially treat their attack and defense as having a +1 already applied to them in many scenarios. Height plus evasive 2 means that the Ranocs will have 3/3 stats against figures below them. There's one more number here that we haven't talked about yet, and I think it's actually the most important one of them all: the point cost. 50 points for a 3-figure ranged squad with these sorts of stats is really quite good, and it makes the Ranocs all the more expendable. At roughly 17 points per figure, you can afford to trade a few for tethering your opponent's advance or launching strategic suicide attacks. These numbers look good on paper, but they do admittedly represent a best-case scenario. If your Vipers are fighting on even ground, or worse, attacking an opponent who has high ground, I don't think you can expect promising results. Perhaps more than any Vipers that came before them, the Ranocs rely on translating their move speed directly into acquiring height advantage. However, the Ranocs do have one more trick up their sleeve, and it's a good one: hypnosis. When attacking an adjacent figure, the defender rolls 1 less defense die for each skull the Ranocs rolled. As an example scenario, if a Ranoc Viper attacks a Greatbow Archer on even ground and rolls 2 skulls, the Greatbow Archer can now only roll 1 defense die to try to defend the attack. Without hypnosis, the Greatbow Archer could rely on its 3 defense and 2 life to shrug off the blow. Simply put, hypnosis gives the Ranocs the ability to punch well above their weight class and can actually be quite the threat to multi-life figures. I know I said it back when they were first announced, but I think folks are really sleeping on the power of hypnosis. This is seriously one of the strongest melee abilities we've seen in modern Heroscape, and it can be absolutely devastating for an unprepared opponent to deal with. With 7 move, the threat is always there for a Viper to dart in, grab height, and launch a deadly attack down on an opponent. A well-timed, coordinated hypnosis attack can put a lot of wounds on an enemy hero, and likely more than outweigh the 17 points spent on each Viper. Frankly, I love the design of the Ranoc Vipers. The interplay between their ranged attacks and melee potential, combined with their speed and lust for height advantage, makes them the most mechanically interesting Viper army card to date, if you ask me. To be fair, Hypnosis does feel a bit like a win more ability, that is, an ability that only kicks in when things are already going well for you. Take a look at Maul from the Deathstalkers card for a good example of this. With that being said though, Heroscape is a game that can reward winning more. Mortal Blow on the Dreadnoughts card is another example of a win more ability, but the threat it presents should not be underestimated. I feel similarly about Hypnosis. I think a player who uses the Ranocs solely for their ranged attacks is missing out on their real potential. In scenarios where kiting is impossible, capitalizing on Hypnosis opportunities will likely determine the outcome of the engagement. If your opponent can reach your Vipers, they will kill your Vipers, so I think it's often the correct decision to send some of your Vipers to their death to tie up your opponent. In my opinion, the Ranoc Vipers are a melee squad masquerading as a ranged squad. If you think about them like this, you'll be able to take full advantage of what they bring to the table. Your opponent might not expect you to rush in and punish them for standing next to height, but they'll think twice about doing it again once the Ranocs give them a bloody nose. Before we move on, I just have to show off these black custom Ranoc Vipers that channel artist Brett painted. Taking heavy inspiration from the elite Onyx Vipers, I think he successfully created a squad of elite Ranoc Vipers. Evasive 8 might be too powerful for a ranged squad to have though, so what do you think their special powers should be? Let me know. So now let's take a look at the second common squad included in this army expansion, the Elites of Ullar. Serving as Ullar's personal guard, the Elites are essentially the final piece of the puzzle to the Mielke-Ziamara tag team combo. Released back in 2024, Mielke and Ziamara were some of Ullar's first figures within the Age of Annihilation. Though originally intended to be assigned to Valorak, I think Renegade made the wise choice to alter their design and give them to Ullar instead. Thematically, Valorak was originally conceived to be far too similar to Ullar and Aquila. Renegade has since moved to distance Valorak from the nature motifs present in the HasLab pitch, and I think all parties are stronger for it. That being said, this puts the Elites of Ullar in a weird spot. Up until this point, each Valkyrie general had only a single Curie squad to their name. Some, like Vidar and Aquila, are still waiting for their first. Now, because of the reaffiliation of Mielke and Ziamara, Ullar has two, the Protectors and the Elites. This has now catapulted Ullar into first place when it comes to Curie representation, and it's a bit of an unexpected turn for the faction. I won't say it's unwelcome though. As I discussed in my Understanding Valkyrie Generals video, Ullar was always the one with some of the least viable army cards, from a competitive lens that is. The Elites may not move the needle significantly, but they do give Ullar a bit more relevancy, especially in contemporary formats. The Elites of Ullar are a 3-figure common squad, and unlike any Curie squad before them, these warriors have 2 life each. That might be surprising given their smaller stature, but these are some of Ullar's closest guards. They may have been imbued with Wellspring Water or other such magic to sustain their longevity. Ziamara's Amulet of Pivotar can also keep them on the battlefield for long periods of time, enduring assaults that would have decimated lesser armies. Indeed, Ziamara's utility is finally unlocked here, and her ability to allow elites within 6 spaces of her to potentially shrug off wounds is one of the strongest defensive auras in the game. Because of this, I think Ziamara is an auto-include in any army looking to field the Elites of Ullar. Without her protection, their fairly meager stat block will likely come off as unimpressive, especially for 105 points. To help bolster their value though, the Elites feature 3 special powers. The first is fairly evident, flying. Like all Curie before them, the Elites of Ullar can fly over terrain and obstacles when moving, and they'll certainly need it as a base move speed of 4 is pretty bad for a melee figure. Atlaga from Classicscape can help get them around the map quicker, but they may not need his help given their second power. Pact of Ullar allows you to move an unengaged Kiri figure you control up to 4 spaces anytime an elite suffers a wound. This allows you to develop reinforcements from your backline, move your key heroes around, or threaten your opponent by advancing your figures on their turn. All around, this is a great ability, and it helps keep the army agile and reactive. Their last ability, Blade Dance, allows unique Ullar Kiri to roll 1 additional die when attacking a figure adjacent to one of your elites. This can help figures like Xiomara or Mielke make short work of enemies who engage your elites, but it also leaves the design space open for a unique squad of Ullar Kiri to enter the fray one day. I like it. It reminds me a lot of Targeting Beacon from the Omnicron Repulsors. It also makes Mielke incredibly scary, boosting her double attack to 5 dice each roll, giving her Spear of Sankari an even greater chance to heal your wounded elites. It's also fairly limited though. The total list of unique Ullar Kiri who can benefit from this power is pretty scant, so I think Mielke, being the one who can make the most use of it, becomes another auto-include in any elite's army. That basically means that the army builds itself, and that's one of my core issues with it. Essentially, your best plan of action is to take Mielke, Xiomara, and as many copies of the elites as the format's point total allows. There's really no reason to mix the elites with non-Ullar Kiri, or non-Kiri figures in general. Sadly, I think the limitations of Blade Dance are largely to blame for this. At present, the power only benefits 4 army cards in the game, and I think this relegates the elites to a niche, non-splashable status. Simply put, you're playing the elite's army, not an elite's army, and there's a big difference. It makes me wonder if less restrictive drafts of Blade Dance were ever explored. What if it allowed any figure who follows Ullar to roll an additional die when attacking enemies engaged to your elites? Are there any broken combinations in there that I'm not seeing? It would, at the very least, give you some incentive to run both army cards in this box at the same time, which is not nothing. Given the price tags attached to Heroscape expansions these days, you absolutely want to get the best bang for your buck, and I think it's unfortunately a bit of an issue with this release. At present, I own 4 copies of each squad. For the elites, that's honestly more than I'll ever need. 4 squads plus both of their critical heroes adds up to 600 points exactly, and that's on the far end of what you'll typically see formats adhere to. My local scene, for example, most often plays within the range of 300 to 500 points. I don't need any more elites. But I might need more Vipers. Comparatively cheap, 4 squads of Vipers only adds up to 200 points, leaving a lot of room on the table for more. The problem is that the only way to acquire them is through an expensive combo pack that contains figures I can't use. What's a Viper diehard to do here? Truthfully, I hope the Vipers get repackaged in the future. I think Renegade is leaving money on the table by deterring fans from buying more. They've already cut the steel molds, so offering the Vipers separately, or better yet, packaged with new Vipers at a later date, is within the realm of possibility. Or at least I hope so. A slug can dream. Anyways, those are my thoughts on this release from the Gathering Storm story arc. What do you think of these figures? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I've been your host, RR Slugger, and until next time, happy scaping.